Well, welcome, Richardson Plano networkers and guests. Today, we will connect to Thrive Mastermind with our guest speaker, Andie Monet, who will be speaking about the secret to creating explosive profits without adding costs. That's right, without adding costs. Can't wait. In this transformational mastermind, Andie will share the secrets to creating explosive profits without adding costs. Even more powerful is you can do it in less than 4 months. Andie Monet is a business optimization expert. She has advised Fortune 500 corporations, small businesses, and foreign and domestic governments. With over 3 decades of experience, she passionately helps businesses create explosive profits without adding costs. More importantly, she transforms people from small business owner to a corporate executive in their business, which creates confidence, healthier relationships, and more joy in life. Please join with me in welcoming our guest speaker for today, April 22nd. I think I got that right this week, Andie Monet.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I'm super excited to be here. And I love this topic so much. Of course, that's what I do for a living, but even so, I love it because we all spend so much time, or a lot of us spend a lot of time in our businesses, and some of us are old enough to think and remember that the more hard work you put into your business, the more successful your business is, and that sort of the other priorities in our life kind of get pushed on the wayside because if you're as old as I am, that was it was expected out of us, right? And so I don't do this because I'm good at it. I do it because there's this other part of life that I feel is really important, that our businesses should be able to complement our lives, not take away from it. And in that process, you have to have the strategies to be able to do that. So for example, instead of working 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day, especially if you have a family or a spouse, wouldn't you rather do all of that work somehow in a 6, 7 or 8 hour day, right? So that you actually can spend time with your family, you can be there for dinner, you can go to your children's events, sporting events or recitals or whatever comes up, right? And so that's really why I love doing this. And so I'll just give you the 2-minute background besides the bio that you heard is that my first business started when I was 16 years old because I was homeless and my single mom abandoned me. So I had to figure this whole journey out really quickly. And it was scary and it was challenging. I mean, every business owner has challenges, but this was like now trying to do these challenges at 16 was not easy. And so a lot of the stuff I had to learn on my own, like things that I think that we think are very basic from a business standpoint, I had no clue. I mean, I learned this all from scratch out of necessity. And so along that journey, I mean, I did eventually, get multiple business degrees and all that fun stuff, but adding the piece of the life of figuring it out on your own in combination with experience, in combination with academic formal education, I have this experience and this unusual skill set, which a little bit on a tangent point is my original degree is in engineering and physics. And the reason I bring that up is because in engineering, you're designing, and in physics, you're learning, basically cause and effect, and then add a ton of math to that. And which the reason I call myself a business optimization expert is because optimization is a mathematical formula where you have multiple formulas, multiple constraints, all at the same time. And how do you optimize with a situation given specific constraints that limit your ability, as well as other things that you want to maximize? So in the business world, what that means is how do you maximize revenue and minimize costs, which I'm pretty much everybody knows that, right? But how do you do that? And what's the best way to do that? Because there could be hundreds of ideas or brainstorming or possibilities, and maybe they all work, right? But which one or two or three are going to make the biggest difference? And so that kind of leads me to, what I have devised is really the key to make, creating explosive profits in any business. I mean, I have small business clients, I have Fortune 500 clients. It's the same process, but just the scope is a little bit different. And the first one, I really think everybody knows, but it's easy to forget. And that's how to streamline your processes. So if it takes you 8 hours to do a job and you streamline that process, whether it involves one person or 3 people or however many people, once that process is streamlined, isn't it better that you're spending less time doing getting the exact same result in a shorter amount of time, right? And so one really easy example, which is one of my favorite examples because it was pretty dramatic, is a gentleman called me and he said, hey, I want you to fix my Excel worksheet. And I thought, my first thought is, why are you calling me to fix your Excel worksheet? But then I said, okay, well, I'm on the phone with you. Tell me about it. What's going on? Tell me how this Excel worksheet, how you use it in your process. And the short version of that is he has people in the field. They enter hours into a mobile app that is uploaded into the cloud in his SharePoint drive. That data is downloaded into an Excel worksheet, and then that Excel worksheet, the data from that one Excel worksheet gets distributed to about 17 to 20 other worksheets, and then clients are billed from those 17 worksheets. And I said, well, how long does that take you? And he said, about 3 weeks to 3.5 weeks. And I thought, oh my goodness, first of all, I'm not going to redo your Excel worksheet. And second, I'm going to redo your process. So within literally 2 of my days, we changed his 3-week billing process into a 24-hour billing process. And the result was was doubling his revenue in 2 months, because now he could actually take on more projects. He could train more people. He could bill more clients. It's a lot faster. I mean, a bunch of other stuff too, right? But that's one really easy to understand, simple to implement process. Not that everybody has a 3-week billing process from an Excel worksheet, but the point is to give you an example of how streamlining a process can really, really dramatically affect the financial success of your business, not to mention the hours worked in your day. There's so many other things that you could do with streamlining productivity. There's processes, and part of those processes, also the second piece of that is optimizing your existing IT infrastructure. One really easy example, and I know not everybody uses QuickBooks, but QuickBooks is really a very robust management tool. The thing that most people use QuickBooks for is, do I have money in the bank? What's my profit for the month? And using it for tax preparation purposes. All totally legitimate, right? But it has so many other capabilities that you use to create, financial strategies and operational strategies and analysis around your products and services that really make a difference in your company. And so being able to know what QuickBooks can do, and again, it's not just QuickBooks, it's any of your resources, whether you're using Salesforce or a funnel, or accounting system or CRM or whatever, there's always ways that you can use your existing resources. I don't want to say better, but just more completely, right? Instead of 1 or 2 or 3 functions or functionalities, you can use 4 or 5 or 6 or 8. And one of the things that I find is that sometimes when you don't use your IT systems fully, you're hiring people to do that job instead, which is going to be more expensive than just being able to use the functionality of the systems that you have. So if you don't know how to do something, the first thing people do is to either figure it out themselves and do it themselves, or hire somebody to do it. So again, when you're maximizing your systems, you're potentially decreasing costs in the process that you're looking to accomplish. So that's another, not quite as easy, not as obvious, I think, as streamlining processes, but still a super impactful piece of really creating that financial success in your business. The other thing I really call this business development. And I think naturally we tend to know we want more revenue, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons we're in business, is to create revenue, create financial success, create financial independence, whatever that money piece is, we're using the money as a tool for the rest of our life, right? Outside of that business. So what really is business development, and what options do you have to increase your revenue? And really there's two pieces to that question. One is, how do you get more customers? And the first thing most people go to from an action step is marketing costs. And not that marketing is bad, because it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, right? And I fully support marketing in general, but it's not the only answer. And that's one of the things that I really stress with the clients that I have is, okay, what's your goal? And that's another discussion for in a few minutes, but you can gain new clients by so many other strategies. And I mean, I have a whole webinar just dealing with that. But some examples are building relationships and doing collaborations with complementary industries. So for example, oversimplifying it is, if we have somebody who does hair, a hair cutter, well, they can partner with a makeup person, or they can partner with a spa person or a nail person. I think I might have just said that already, but anyway, and really sort of join efforts, to cross pollinate your client base, and or to communicate, which part of that is marketing, of course, but you can market that in a way that doesn't cost any more money to their clientele, to each other's clientele, whether it's emails or pamphlets if you have a brick and mortar, which you will with hair salon and spas and things like that, right? But really start building those connections with people who are complementing you, but in the same industry, right? And you see this a lot with Fortune 500 companies a lot of times, but it can be done on a small business level as well. So building those relationships, collaborations, ideas, and then also related to how can you get more clients is being able to sort of go that, I don't even know if it's vertical integration or horizontal integration. And so what that really means is, okay, what about your clients' clients, or your suppliers' clients, or people that you really can go not to your direct relationship connections, but like one or two levels from what you would think your connections are. So one, I think, unusual example, but I think it's a really good example, is I had a company who submitted bids to get accepted into the building and permitting department of the city. So their direct clients were contractors, which of course makes sense, right? Because the contractors are doing the building, they need the permits. But what happens if you connect and build a relationship with the people at the permitting office, and not in some creepy, awkward way, but just, hey, I have a business, I'm helping people get through permitting. Who are some of the people that you guys interact with that I can connect with? Or the other thing is subcontractors instead of direct contractors, because the subcontractors also work with contractors, and their primary contractor you might not have a relationship with yet. So there's so many ways to be able to reach a larger audience, get more clients, because now you're reaching a larger audience, and be able to, obviously gain revenue from your new client base. And another separate way to increase your revenue without actually increasing your client base, but use your existing client base that you already have, is by understanding, and that's a whole nother relationship building as well, but you have certain products and services. How do you create different products, and using your existing products and services, how do you package them differently? So for example, I have a beauty supply company, and they sell, let's say they sell one size of a face cream. So options are make a bigger bulk size, or make a smaller travel size. And this can be done with services as well. So I have multiple levels of what my services are to people. And so they can have a smaller service, smaller scope or a larger scope. But when I talk with them and they say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, they don't always, the reason that they want help is because they can't do it themselves, right? So I want to bring value to that and say, okay, this is what you asked for and this is how much it's going to cost. But I don't know what your budget's like. And if you're tight on budget, you can save, let's say $5,000 and the scope is less and you can do it yourself and I can help you along that path of doing it yourself. Because then they're like, okay, that's much more in my range. I have people to do some extra work. That's a great option. Or maybe they don't have a budget issue and then I give them the higher option and say, this is what you asked for. This is what it's going to cost. But if you want to do more, and again, I feel like this is sort of my educational process with them is, this is what you asked for, but by the way, if you do this, this, and this, it's going to even more impact your business. And so if this is the kind of solution that you want, it costs more, yes, but you're also saving potentially time, you're saving the potentially cost. One option is oftentimes they want to build a brand new, implement a brand new IT system. We don't necessarily have to do that, right? So instead of paying the $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 of a brand new system or architecture or software or whatever the IT piece of it is, you can save that money, change, and then do a different process that will cost less than the 25,000, 50,000, 100,000. Maybe it'll cost 5,000 and still get the impact that you're looking to get with a different option. So giving people options in price point, in size, in scope, all really create an increase in revenue for a current customer. And, if it's a custom home, you're not going to build a custom home for every customer, right? I get that. But there are other ways that you can re-engage with them from a relationship standpoint and give them ideas, because I feel as a consultant, which I've been doing for 35 years, one of the biggest pieces is not, hey, I'm great. Hey, I've been doing this a long time. Hey, I've had great success. Hey, I can, double or triple your revenue or your profits in less than 4 months. But it's educating them on what their options are and what ideas are and what possibilities are in being able to help them move from point A to point B, or even more, depending on what that scope is, right? And so it's not about me first. It's always about what are their goals. And that kind of leads me to sort of one other piece of this puzzle is, I feel the most impactful way to increase revenue related to clients, of course, is being able to listen. Because if you're not listening to what their problem is and you're not listening to what their challenge is, how can you possibly communicate that you have a solution, right? I mean, yes, I do have a solution. And do I think I can help everybody? Absolutely. But if they don't understand how I can help them, it's not going to do me any good, right? So part of consulting really involves listening and educating your potential client and your existing clients on ways that you can help them, whether it's better sleep, work less hours, increase revenue, whatever that is. What is their pain point, right? How can you make a difference in their life? And I think that's really important. And I think we know that subconsciously, but we don't always really address it directly. Like, we don't make it an active thought or an active action or an active communication to listen and see how you can build that relationship into them saying yes, and not in a manipulative way, but in an honest, authentic, this is their problem, and then this is the solution. And hopefully more than one solution. I usually try to get people to have more than one solution, and to really say, yes, I hear you, and this is how I can help. And so a lot of more corporate clients or corporate companies, not as much with small businesses. They just go straight to, I have, our company's been in business 50 years and we work with Microsoft, Google, and Netflix, and we're the best solution on the market. Well, nobody cares. I mean, like, how are you going to help me? And how are you going to provide value to me? And there's a process for that. And so I think that that's really, really important in the whole grand scheme of increasing your revenue, building relationships, getting more clients, being able to service the clients that you already have. And I think it's just very easily missed, even though we know this already. But what steps do you actively take to make that happen? So that's another thing. The fifth thing, which is somewhat related, but a little bit different, is communication. And I call this a communication language. So in general, there's 4 basic types of communication languages. One is structured, one is technical, one is action, and one is relationship. I'm super relationship. I'm like, I want to hug you. I love you. I'm going to be here for you. I care about you. I mean, all the touchy-feely words, right? And if I'm talking to somebody who's a technical person and all they want is like, give me the data, give me the numbers, how much is it going to cost? What is the impact on the company? How many companies have you worked with? How many companies have you worked with in my industry? Like all of those data points, if they're technical like that, we are not going to be speaking the same language, right? And if we cannot speak the same language, he is not going to, or she is not going to feel that I'm going to be able to provide value. They don't understand, they don't listen, they don't agree, they don't like, and I mean anybody, not just in business, because we're trying to grow a business, right? But I mean, this can be taken to your household, your spouse, your children, anywhere and everywhere. If you want to be, I mean, we all want to be heard, we all want to be respected, we all want to be appreciated as people, but as a business owner, it affects our finances. So how do you communicate with the people that you want to do business with? And if you're speaking one language and they're speaking another, it's almost as bad as speaking French and English or English and Russian. Like, they're just not going to get it. And if they don't get it, there's no value to them to move forward with you. And so with structured people, they like checklists, organizations, processes, what to expect next. They want to see the picture. They want to know what's going to happen. They want to know how you're going to move from point A to point B. Once you get off the phone, you better let them know what the next step is. You better let them know, hey, this is the end of our call. This is what you can expect next. We're going to schedule an appointment, in 2 days. And on that appointment, we're going to need this information or I'm going to share this information, or I'm going to need this from you. Like, they need to know what that step is. I mean, not that I think everybody doesn't want that, but especially structured people, because that's the language that they speak. And then the last one is action people. And for me, those usually the easiest for me to connect with, even though I'm relationship. But action people are like, what do I need? I don't need all the information. Just tell me what I need to do. Tell me where I need to be. Tell me what the bottom line is. A lot of CEOs are like this in corporations, are like, just give me the punchline. If I have questions, I will let you know, because the more you talk, the less I'm going to be interested. And if you recognize that ahead of time, it makes a world of difference, because you can turn an action person off instantly within literally 1 or 2 minutes. Whereas if you already can kind of pick up on if they're in action, which is the next thing I'm going to talk about, within 1 or 2 minutes, they're ready to say yes. I mean, and that's really how I personally have so many Fortune 500 companies, because I speak that language. And I'm like, as an example, although a dramatic example, but it's still kind of funny, is, Monster Beverage is one of my biggest clients. They're $4 billion. And I have engagements with them off and on for years. And so in the middle of one engagement, I sent a proposal to an executive there. And I said, here's a proposal, sign it. And he said, I don't know who you are, and I'm not going to sign it. And why are you in my office? Which is, makes sense. And I said, well, let me put it to you this way. Do you want 12 million to 14 million more dollars in your bank account every month for the next 5 years? Well, yeah. I'm like, well, sign the paper and I'll tell you the details later. And obviously you can't do that with everybody, but with him I could, because I knew enough about him to know that that's the language that he can speak, that he can understand, that he appreciates. He signed the document right then and there within a few minutes, and then I started the project. Not that day, but eventually, because I knew what he wanted. I knew what his pain points were, and he didn't even realize he had a streamlining issue, which is what this proposal was. So again, speaking people's languages so they hear you, so they understand you, so they know, they feel that you're listening to them, they feel you understand them. Although I might have just said that already, maybe I'll say it again, I don't know. And that you really understand what they need and what they want, in part just has to do with the language that you're speaking to them. Now, here's the really fun part, I think, is, okay, well, let's say you already know what those 4 kinds of communication languages are, right? How do you know what kind of communication language someone is speaking? And that is super fun. If you have the ability, I don't want to say have the ability, everybody has the ability, but if you make a conscientious effort to see what people are doing, and those are all nonverbal cues, nonverbal communication. You can see this in a business meeting, you can see it in a presentation, you can see it anywhere. And here's an example. Everybody who is structured will have a pen and paper ready to go. Right? And they're like, I'm ready, let's go. What do I need to write down? What do I need to focus on? What's my homework? What's all of those things, right? And a technical person, and these are just subtle examples, but technical people tend to have very intense eye contact because they want to know, like they're waiting for this information to get given to them. They're just like in anticipation, right? These are often engineers, scientists, if you work with those kinds of people. These are research people. These are like nitty gritty, detail oriented. A lot of these can be accountants, but they're really attorneys because they need information. But you can just usually tell by the way that they act if you know what to look for, right? So when you're going into a proposal with a group of people, whether it's just a business owner, or maybe if you do corporate business, you're going into a room with several people, it's good to see who's in the room. And if you just don't have time, or there's just too many people in your presentation, you just want to hit all of those 4 points. And again, it's just language, right? Talk data for a little bit, talk process for a little bit, talk feelings for a little bit, and talk action usually in the beginning, because those people will, tune out within the first 5 minutes. So action will always come first if you don't know where to start. So, taking these physical cues, nonverbal communication, what they bring into the meeting, all can tell you what kind of people they are. And you can also ask questions as well, but those are just, I didn't have any questions in mind to share with you today, but you could ask something simple like, what do you do? Find out what they do in their role. Well, if it's a CEO or a business owner, you know what their role is. But if they have enough people, if they have enough staff, then you can see how, if they're 1 step from the people or 2 steps, do you have a middle management? All those really kind of affect, how to communicate with them. So I went through the, streamlining operations, maximizing existing IT infrastructure, being able to collaborate and work with people in complementary industries to get a wider reach of client base, and also creating different options for existing clients, because you can actually double your revenue with an existing client base if you know how to communicate with them and know how to add value to their lives and what additional products and services you could actually offer them. And then there's the communication. And again, there's 2 pieces of that communication. There's how I'm communicating to somebody else, as well as how can I identify the communication style of the person that I'm talking to. And all of those 5 things can be done pretty much without any additional cost at all to your company. So that's sort of the semi-short, quick and dirty version of that. But I welcome questions, comments, disagreements, experiences. Like, I love this because, I get a lot of ideas from other people too.
David caught me drinking my
Absolutely.
coffee.
I'm gonna let's first of all, I don't wanna stop this part of it without letting you know that was awesome. I actually took I wasn't not paying attention. I saw Randy's head down too. I wrote down
I got a page of notes.
2.5 pages of stuff, and that's more common for him than me. So,
right.
so that was awesome,
I
Andie. I
appreciate
appreciate
that.
you going through it. And obviously, I have a perspective. But Randy, since you're the master questioner and you opened up your mic first, and by the way, for those that want to have something to say or have a question, just open your mic or raise your hand, and and I'll call on you, and then I'll spotlight you so that Andie will know who's talking to her. So Randy, what's your question or observation?
Well, first of all, Andie, that was awesome. You were obviously in your brain very well organized. You've obviously done this before at least 100 times, and that came through loud and clear. So that was great. We certainly walk away with confidence in what you've said and the information that you've given us. Some of the things that I didn't hear you speak about, and I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, or whether I missed it, which is entirely possible. The things that I wrote down was, I didn't hear you talk about a normalization with the client at the beginning, sort of to make sure that you're speaking the same language, that you have the same goals. What are the limitations of the assignment? I pulled out the situational leadership
Oh yeah.
card that I've had for years. And I remember that you don't sell, you tell. And of course, you don't tell in the classic sense of the word. But how do you ensure that you and the client are on the same page from the beginning, and that your objectives, or what you think their objectives are that you're going to solve, are the
Yes,
same as what they believe their
absolutely.
goals are?
And that is so true, so true. And I didn't talk about it, not because it's not important, because it is. It's critical, right?
Hmm.
But it was sort of a different, I just didn't talk about it. But yes, and one of the ways that I do that is like the transition between listening and educating. And so before I tell them that I have a solution, I'll say, hey, you said that you have high turnover, right? And you're trying to find a way to reduce that turnover. So I'll repeat their challenge in their words first, and then I'll re-say it in my words so that I can then move to the solution that an example of a solution that I can provide. So that step is super, super critical. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it doesn't matter if you understand them and you're speaking the language in the sense of structured, technical action or relationship, if the actual solution is not going to work, right? So that's super critical.
So Tony,
Yes,
okay, so you opened your mic. So if you
yes.
open your mic, you get a chance to be spotlighted, and sometimes I'll spotlight you whether you open your mic or not. So just get ready. So you guys need to be ready. We do engaging virtual meetings. That means everybody that's here may get voluntold to give me your input. So what was your question or comment or thought?
Well, Andy, I want to say thank you so much. I learned a lot in that 25-minute speech you gave, and I highlight a few things I want to say, and I have probably one more questions after that. One thing you said, you were 16 years old when becoming homeless. I was 16 years old when I became an orphan back in Haiti.
Oh,
So yeah, I lost both my parents. I lost my dad when I was about 13, 14, and I lost my mom when I was 16. And I thought the world was over. It was like, there's no
absolutely.
way out of this. it was tough. So that's probably part of my motivation to drive and try to get some success in my life to, not repeat my parents' mistake and anything else. And but the second thing is, you're talking about Excel. I'm horrible with Excel. Terrible with Excel. I don't know what to do with Excel. So I don't Excel. And talk about IT infrastructure. So I am what we could call a small business or a single man business, but I do big things. Like yes, it's I'm small, a single guy, but my value, my revenue for the past 4 years, it's come from $1 to $2 million in revenue. I don't have Excel. I just said I don't have any infrastructures at all, and my communication is not where I would want it to be. Because I was listening to a lady one time in a podcast where she had that much money, and after a period of time, I think she just sold the business, whatever, and she went to over $30 million. I think I'm using her as my model, but I don't know how to use everything I have and to bring this little company to a different level.
Grow to the next level.
Yes.
Yeah. It depends. It's industry by industry. And if it's just you, the trick is how do you do more automation, right?
Yeah.
So one example, and I don't know if this is going to work for you, but I've been doing it a lot this week with other clients, is I can actually build an onboarding system, like technically, and what happens is I have a marketing company, actually, is one example. And she has so much business and she just doesn't have the time. And she actually has 3 people already. And she's like, but I want to be on she wants to be in the vision. She doesn't want to be in the day-to-day stuff because that's just not, she doesn't want to, for, that's fine. So, but there's a really in-depth onboarding process when you do marketing. If you're good well, that's not fair to say, but the more comprehensive the marketing, the more involved the onboarding process. Her first meeting is 3 to 4 hours to onboard people. And I said, okay, well, what I'm doing with her, and actually she's not the only one, but one example is, okay, after you have the intro call and after you get to the yes, right? There's the before the yes and there's after the yes. And we're working with both. But after the yes, send them an email. It has instructions, it has links, it has steps, it has checklists. And she just needs to give you her social media profiles, the passwords, all of this stuff. What's her branding message, all of the marketing and the branding piece. You have templates, you have documents. Your client will do all of this without you. You don't need to be with her for this. And that's 1 to 2 hours of a 3 to 4 hour meeting, and then getting connected. And you just given her instructions, or she's just given her instructions and the templates and the steps to go through. Of course, she's going to be there for questions and answers, right? So just with that piece, with her specifically, we decreased her hours by 30%, just with that. And then we have the before a client becomes a client. There's a workflow that I created, and I actually programmed this myself, where we're creating something that works for them, where you want to do as little as possible. And maybe that's with lead generation, you don't want to talk to 100 people a day, right? Maybe if there's a way to reduce 100 people a day into qualified leads, from a regular lead to a qualified lead, that's a really important process, right? So what I normally do, and I'm oversimplifying this, and this is what I do, is literally I draw a picture of the process. What does it look like? How do you get clients? Do you have inbound sales and outbound sales, or both, or neither? How do you get clients? How do you onboard them? After they're onboarded, what's the process look like? And how do you get paid? Those are literally 4 steps. And once that's blocked out, you can say, this piece here is going to make the biggest difference in my time and my energy and the money, right? So that automation is really critical, especially for a solopreneur.
Because I have, for the past 2 years, I have revenue. but there's a difference between revenue and profit.
Absolutely.
And my revenue will come, it's for like many reasons I'm not gonna state here, it's pretty high. It's getting there. But when I look at the profits, and that's what's killing me, like, okay, based on my revenue, my profit should have that much percentage.
Yep.
And I just cannot get there.
Yeah, the cost piece is going to be critical, and obviously, as you already mentioned. So the cost really is a different analysis, because that is more comprehensive. Like from my, when I get involved with costs, it's not as easy, because I need to know, for example, if I were doing it, I would need to know what your cost buildup is. If you don't know what it costs or involved with which projects, that's going to make it harder. If you do, it's going to make it easier. And those costs that are associated with that revenue that it's generating is going to be critical to define how can you reduce that, right? And then if you have operational costs, that's the operational cost, reducing operational costs is going to be a different strategy than reducing the cost of goods sold that generate that revenue, right? And if you want to have a strategy session, I will give you all the ideas that I have. It's totally fine. Like, my big thing is, how can I empower people to get to their next level? Because there's tools and resources that I can just give you, and you're like, oh, that's great, let's move forward. And you know what to do. So, I really encourage you to reach out. I'm happy to help.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, poor man's analysis of that is to oversimplify everything you just said, is that either you're charging too little or you're spending too much.
Yep.
And you need a strategic and methodical approach to decompose both of those. And that's what I heard Andie say.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I give the long version. I apologize. That's the technical engineer in me. Remember, I said
There you
I thought
go.
Actually, it's not the technical engineer in you, because you have my problem, and that is, you're an expressive. You understand the 4 quadrants, and we express. We like to talk. We're not a driver. We don't just want the answer, but we're in the top tier of the 4 quadrants.
Yeah.
So, and I totally understand it. So, Dawn, I'm gonna put you on the spot for 2 reasons. One is, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself to Andie because you came on a little bit before we just kind of launched. And then also, as a franchise owner and a new franchise you're picking up or whatever, and a bunch of stuff you're doing, any thoughts that you have or questions? And introduce yourself first, and then do that.
Hi, Andie. I own a tutoring franchise, Club Z, and I am an action person, so we'll get along great. But I also make lists, so I think I'm that kind of person too. I have a lot of lists I like to check off. Anyway, but thank you so much. That was really great. And that what I'm thinking of in my business for streamlining is, there's a person called an educational consultant, and that's somebody I would hire to take some of the load off me. And you mentioned the balance of that. When is it more profitable that you have to unload some stuff so you can go out and do other stuff? And I'm getting ready to take on a new territory. So I am getting close to that, needing that person. So I'm balancing that, but you gave me some ideas of how to think toward that. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and the other thing related to that is and you didn't ask me this, obviously, but knowing what their cost is versus the revenue that it's going to increase in your company. So, I mean, as a numerical example, somebody costs, I'll say $50 an hour for the consultant, but you're bringing in $100 of revenue per hour to have them do that. So that's profitable, right? But being able to know that going into it is really critical. And then also I would add that the constraints, because your constraints are now going to be less because it's more than you. But that next level, there's still going to be constraints. So know how much revenue you can build with adding one person before you need to consider adding another person, and then kind of keep with that plan, because you don't want to, in that transition of hiring that next person, sometimes the business can be overwhelming because you're still trying to figure out all the pieces and how they work and what she's going to do potentially. and what she's not going to do, and making that clear, try to make that clear in your mind before you do that, so that when it does get messy, you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm not doing. And I'm not trying to do 2 jobs at once, because that's why I have her. So that's going to be really critical, I think, if you haven't already done that.
And
I haven't done that yet.
You also have to, Dawn, be careful of the hidden costs, or we sometimes call that overhead. So the $50 an hour that that person charges you, there may be an administrative or overhead cost for you to enable that. Maybe more insurance that you have to cover, et cetera, et cetera. Just another thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thanks, Randy, for chiming in there. So, Dawn, I'm going to move. So, by the way, I'm going to, Ricky Jean, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself, and so I'm going to bring you on screen. And then Zip, I'm going to bring you up in a second. So if you have any observations, questions, so since you weren't here for the introductions. But thank you, Dawn, for, as always, bringing some intelligent engagement here. So I appreciate that. Let me bring Ricky Jean up. Ricky, go ahead.
Yes, Ricky Jean Wright. I ride 2 horses most of the time, as they say here in Texas.
I am in Texas.
Yeah. So one of them is music. You can see behind the hear me on the wall there that I do a little songwriting and recording and live music stuff that can be all found on AmericanaSingerSongwriter.com, or can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, Pandora, all those places. My passion is songwriting. And when you're a songwriter, you have to sing your own songs, because not everybody in the world knows your music. The other thing that I do is I switched from being a manufacturer's representative and owning my own agency for about 22 years. And about 12 years ago, I switched to merchant services, credit card processing, which you could find that at merchantservicestx.com. And I think I did both of those businesses so that I could be in business for myself and free to do music when I wanted to or needed to. So that's kind of my thing. What I wrote down while you were talking is that I noticed that over the years, I talked to high-level people in their companies who had kind of a bad taste in their mouth about consultants who they claim a lot of times charge them thousands of dollars with hardly any results. And I wonder sometimes if that's the reason that happened, was that they didn't have a mentor like me who told me, do not go out as a manufacturer's rep with a sales pitch or a demo kit. Don't do that. Just go and ask questions, because
Absolutely.
people will tell you what they want. And so I think those were some of the things that you talked about finding out what people really want or really need. And sometimes you ask the right questions, they don't even know they needed it. And then they find out they did,
No, so true. So
Thanks,
true.
Ricky. Let me bring Zip on, because he hadn't had a chance to introduce. He's a unique personality here, and actually amazing guy. He's got a great network, good connector. So Zip, I'm going to bring you up, and you can quickly keyword introduce yourself, because we're getting to the short strokes here. But
I'm always quick compared to some of these people online. Hey, zippity-doo-dah, zippity-ay. Playing CBG, we got the CBG out there, we got the other ones. And there's a few more. Don't let your friends go down to your drugstore. Make sure you get a certificate of analysis. We got one to help you put you to sleep, help you with your muscles. And Dave and Randy are some of my customers, and they have testimonials. So I'm Zip. Everybody open up here. We'll have focus for the rest of the afternoon. Drop it in there.
Thanks, Zip. I knew that would be fun. Okay, so anybody else have any any observations, thoughts? We got a couple more minutes before we have to land the plane. We got about 10. But I wanted to make sure everybody that took the time, invested their most valuable asset in being here in person is here. And for those that are watching on the replay, it's a good reason to be here. So we'll get you engaged in the conversation and so on. Any other thoughts? Janice, I'm going to bring you on because you're going to be here, our mastermind lead next week. So I'm going to bring you up here to just any thoughts or things you'd like to share.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the presentation, Andie, and wrote lots of notes down too. So then I was kind of wondering whether I was which category I fell into, because I'm very much a relationship person, but I'm also writing lots of notes. So I think structure is really important to me as well. And I love that you spoke to everything that made sense to me. And as a solopreneur, I think I resonated with some of the things that Tony was talking about as well. And that is in the up and down, the roller coaster that can happen with solopreneurs when you don't have those systems in place properly. And I'm always struggling with that. Like someone's wanting to show you a new software program that will help you with this or help you with that.
Yes.
It just gives me a headache, to be honest, but I know that I have to knuckle under sometimes and make some of these things work. But my biggest
knowing what the right answer is the hard part.
Yes.
Because again, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know which solution is going to be best for you. And it takes time and energy. Even if it's free, it still takes time and energy to decide and figure out if it makes sense. And again, I would encourage you to schedule a call with me so we can at least fine tune what direction to go into, because I can talk with you and ask you questions and know, at least narrow down what would be a better option over another one. Awesome. But that is really, really key for any solopreneur, is being able, because again, I had a talk one time, and I know I don't have very much time, but I had a talk one time, and it was called Plans Are Not Good. And the reason was because a plan is not just about what to do, but there's also timing involved in it. Mm-hmm. So let's say eventually, like, you have 5 options. Well, which one of those are going to be better now? And which ones are going to be better later? Mm-hmm. And does that depend on your revenue? Does it depend on your industry? Does it depend on how many employees you have? And all of them are solutions. Honestly, I do believe that in my heart. And they even may be helpful, but which one's going to make the most difference in your life? And that's not as easily identifiable without either knowing yourself really well or knowing their product really well, or asking me. And I'm totally happy to send you in the right direction. So
awesome. Thank you. Well, I think that your presentation and what you talked about today, even though it wasn't all about relationships, it was big time that will lead into really what I was going to talk about next week, which is all about LinkedIn. But from that standpoint of, I don't go into any training with the same answers. I have to ask questions. I have to engage with people to see,
absolutely,
number one, what they think they need to use it for, and number
absolutely,
2, how to really use it. So yeah,
and how they think they need to use it, how they are using it. And then oftentimes, again, with the educational process as a consultant, tell them, if relevant, what myths there are.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you. Thanks, David.
Okay, thanks, Janice. And again, we'll get to really engage with you next week, but I appreciate you. And I put our millennial on the screen here because, if you know millennials, that's got to be another attribute, is they like to text and they like to communicate, and they also like to kind of stay in the background and watching what goes. So I'm bringing him back up to the stage here. So I want to get the millennial input here into the thinking. So David, what did you take away from this?
Sure. I'm actually Gen Z, so
Yeah,
even
I know
below that.
you're even younger than millennial. So, but you average us out. See, we got some boomers,
Average us out.
we got some X's, and and I don't know if we have any millennials. Maybe Tony's a millennial. I think Tony's probably a millennial. So we've got a little bit of
some old
diversity
farts,
here,
too.
but I wanted to get your perspective on this as a Gen Z.
And I'm glad you did, because I really love hearing the next generation coming up into the workforce, because I can't help business owners who are catering to a new group of people and a new group of mindset that come to the business world until I talk with more. I mean, and I've already learned so much just in the last 5 years. So
Go ahead, David.
So I really appreciate you bringing up the communication style, because that's something that I think that it's so easy to kind of overlook and to make very pristine. And I think a lot of these guys have good of that down. I guess, like, how is that communication style? I guess my question to you is, from you working from individuals to high level, like Fortune 500 companies, how do you see that communication style change? Is it a dramatic
as a
change?
consultant who wants to work for them, or as an
Yes.
employee working with them?
As a consultant.
It varies dramatically. Like, it's a very conscientious, who am I going to talk to, and actually changing my mindset about how I connect with them. Because even the connection process, even before you get a sales presentation, the communication leading up to that is so different than with small businesses. And I say that because when you're talking with corporate executives, it's not their money, right? It's a business decision. It's a number decision. That's almost, they don't really care about you, because as a consultant, you're a dime a dozen. Not you, all of us consultants are a dime a dozen in their mind. So, and their time is very valuable in there. I mean, not that all of our times are not valuable, but this is their mindset, right? My time is valuable. Usually, I would say about 75%, they don't even want to talk to you in the first place, but they need a solution. And it's frustrating. And how do they see as few clients or as few consultants as possible and know that they can move forward? This is how they think. And so speed and communication is like really critical for them. I mean, I cannot stress that enough. And even with if you send physical proposals to them, one, really, I love this idea, is before you even send a proposal, if it's at all possible, to say, hey, what do you want in it? For example, I know several salespeople, and they're like, the proposal shouldn't even have a dollar amount in it sometimes. Like, they're just wanting to know if it's a viable solution first. So their mindset of where they are in that decision making, if you can find that out, like what is the purpose of the next meeting? And they said, well, we're just going to see if it's a viable product. Don't give them any money information yet, as a general rule of thumb, right? But if they say, hey, this is the decision making meeting, put them, ask, should I put a proposal amount in there? Yes. Like, those kinds of questions, like, ask them what they want to see, is going to make a big difference. I can give you a bunch more tips, but I know we're running out of time. But
Thanks, David. I'm glad you weighed in. I appreciate you giving us your insight and your question, and I appreciate you being part of the community here. So we're going to wrap it up here. One of the things, Andie, I'd ask is if you have any links. You made several times, said reach out to you connect with you. So please post those in the chat. For those watching this on replay, any links she posts in the chat here, I will have on the YouTube channel in the description, underneath the recording of this. Also, Andie, if you have any, for those that like checklists and worksheets and stuff like Randy, you can, if there's any kind of tools or things that we should also consider or might be available resource you'd like to share.
Yeah, I always have free downloadables on my website, but I put one in the chat, which is an explosive profits planner. And it's ask questions, gives you action steps and challenges to really sort of be clear about what it is you want to do next in your business and how these steps can prepare you for really making a dramatic difference in your business.
Okay. We'll put those in. you'll have to cut and paste those. I might make them as clickable.
Oh, I can put
links.
it all together.
Well, I'm just saying, make them clickable links. You just do the HTTPS://
Yeah.
If you do that on Zoom while the chat is active, then people can just click on it. It'll take them there. You can open up. You can
Great
open up the browser.
idea. See?
Little fun
Look
tip.
at that.
Little fun
I
tip.
love it.
Yeah, so now when they click on that, see, because I was going to click on it, and so I could make sure I didn't, with my ADD, I didn't forget to come back to it. So anyway, brilliant, great. Thanks, Andie, again. It was awesome, and so many nuggets there. Like I said, I've got a couple of pages here, and obviously a great resource. Thank you for sharing with our community. You're going to be my warrior versus zombie guest, I think next Thursday. Is that correct?
Hi, guys.